Hi, this is Pat Lencioni, and you're watching The Rebound with Coach Matt Doherty.
Welcome to The Rebound with Coach Matt Doherty.
Welcome to The Rebound. I am Matt Doherty, and I'll be your host. On this show, we explore remarkable rebound stories of resilience and recovery. We highlight the leadership qualities that emerge in the face of life's toughest challenges, revealing strength and determination within individuals that inspire us all. With me today is someone that understands leadership. He is the author of 13 books on business management. He is best known as the author of The Five Dysfunctions of a Team, a popular business fable that offers solutions to help teams perform better. I am honored to welcome Patrick Lencioni to The Rebound. His most recent book is The Ideal Team Player. Patrick is the president of the Table Group, a management consulting firm specializing in executive team development. He is also a terrific keynote speaker. Patrick, thank you for being on the show. Tell us about your latest book, The Ideal Team Player.
Well, this is not something, Matt, that I thought I was going to be writing, because I write about leadership and teamwork, and it definitely relates to that. But I accidentally, 4 years ago, just in my own frustration in work and feeling like I was frustrated and grumpy, somebody said to me, "Why are you like that at work sometimes?" And I said, "I don't know." And I figured out why I was grumpy. And it came with a model. And I said, gosh, there's 6 different kinds of work that are done, and I'm doing the wrong one a lot. And that's not a good thing. And then somebody saw the model and they showed it to somebody else and they said, this really works. And we developed it and put an assessment together. So the 6 types of working genius is this whole new way of looking at the gifts God gives us to do work and the gifts he doesn't give us that we're terrible at, so that we can feel much better, less guilty and less judgmental about ourselves and others.
You just touched on a lot of stuff that I, as an executive coach, I work with my clients. One, I think the most important thing we need to know as leaders is self. You need to have great self-awareness. But the other thing you touched on is guilt, because a lot of entrepreneurs bootstrap their company, and they're sweeping the floor. They're going to the copy machine. They're running for coffee. Now all of a sudden, as the organization grows, they're afraid to ask somebody else to go get the coffee. How do you coach that out of somebody?
Well, what you realize, it's so great. I was just talking to a guy today about this. Everyone likes different things. As I like to say, I mean, this isn't my saying, but one man's trash is another man's treasure. And so we all assume that the things we like is what other people like. And so when we have to ask somebody to do something that we wouldn't enjoy, we forget that they might very well enjoy it. And when you really understand the people around you and understand that some people love doing very different things than we do, and you can put them, as we say in sports, in the right position. Hey, there's a guy that loves rebounding. And I know we're talking about rebound, but and it's not a bad thing to say, I need you to box out and rebound. Right. Not everybody wants to shoot a 3-pointer. Not everybody wants to go to the basket. Surround yourself by people with different skills and geniuses, and then let them do what they do, and everybody is pretty happy.
6 types. What are those 6 types, and how do you find out what you really, truly like and don't like? What is your gift? How do you explore that without giving away the farm here on the show? We'll give people an opportunity to go to your website later on.
Well, and if people can figure it out without using the assessment is a great way to figure out what your type is. Okay. But I'll tell everybody what the 6 types are. And if you can figure it out without the assessment, that's fine. But the assessment takes 12 minutes to do. It costs $25. So it's pretty worth it. But so there's the 6 types of working genius. And each of us only have 2 that we love, that give us joy and energy. 2 of them we're okay at, and 2 of them drain us of joy and energy. Okay, so we really need to know that. If God gives us gifts, we should know what they are. And if he didn't give us gifts, we should know what those are too. So here's the 6 types of working genius. The first one is called wonder, the genius of wonder. These are people that love to ponder things and ask questions. And they say things like, I wonder if people like this. Or, there might be a better way. Why do we do it this way? They just ask questions. Their head is in the clouds. It's a wonderful genius. Every project needs somebody that say that. The next genius is a genius of invention. This is the person who hears the thing that somebody's wondering about and says, can I please take a crack at coming up with a new way to do things? They like to invent things. I do that naturally. It's a gift of mine. It doesn't mean I'm smarter than the average bear. It just means God gave me the natural desire and joy from coming up with new things out of thin air. I just love to do it. The next genius is called the genius of discernment, which is gut feel and instinct and integrative thinking and pattern recognition. Some people can look at a problem and just look around and say, I think that's the solution. They're just really good at using their instincts and their gut rather than linear information and data. It's something instinctual. It's very real. The next genius is called galvanizing. Some people love to get in front of people and motivate them and rally the troops. And that's, they wake up and they get joy and energy out of that. I don't. And I was doing it for 20 something years, Matt, and I was burnt out and I didn't know why. And that's how this model came about. People said, what's going on with you? And I said, I don't know. I'm feeling burnt out. And we figured out it was because every day I was coming to work and I was being asked to galvanize, and it wasn't a genius of mine. The next one is called enablement. And this is the genius. When somebody says, I need help, there are certain people that get joy and energy out of saying, I'll help. I'm in. I'm volunteering. I'm stepping up. Whatever you need from me, I will do. And it's a genius. It's a God-given skill. Now, we all need to do that at times. And as a follower of Jesus, we're both Catholic. I want to help others, but I don't have a natural genius of doing whatever somebody asks of me. It's quite hard. So I have to force myself to. There are people in the world who wake up in the morning and just say, I hope somebody calls me today and says, please help me.
And you say that doesn't come naturally to you to want to help somebody else?
I like to help other people using the things I like to do, but there are other people that are like, whatever you need from me, I will give you that.
Gotcha.
That's
and then what's the sixth one?
Tenacity. There are people who get joy and energy, because that's what this is about, out of finishing things, out of pushing things across the finish line, out of going all the way, eliminating obstacles, hitting their number, and they do not feel comfortable unless a project is finishable. I have none of that, Matt. I've written 13 books, but on all the books I wrote, I'm halfway through and I'm ready to move on to the next one. But somebody has to force me to finish because I'm not a finisher. I like to start things, but tenacity is not one of my geniuses.
I love it. This goes back. I call it Stevet. I made up a name, the 6 No's, KNOWS of leadership. And I made up a name about you. You make up stories. I make up stories, right?
Yeah.
You have fables. I made up a story about recruiting somebody from Eastern Europe because I had to make up the acronym and then I had to find the name to match it. And I Googled Stevet and it was some guy in Eastern Europe. I said, 7-footer with grades. I try to recruit him, and the S. You got to know yourself. You got to know your team. You got to know your environment, your vision, the industry, and the truth. But it starts with knowing yourself. And the thing that I love, and I'm gonna skip around here because I like for the speaker sometimes the guest to lead. You're showing great vulnerability. And a friend of mine once said, vulnerability is the new invincibility. So you're admitting to things you're not good at and you don't like. Very rare for a leader. But what I've found is that people lean into that because now you admit that you're not perfect. I can lean into that. I want to work for you. Tell us more about the vulnerability part of leadership.
Well, vulnerability, which is, I wrote a book called The Five Dysfunctions of a Team 20 something years ago.
Love it. Love that book. Big fan.
That's at the heart of trust. Thank you. That's at the heart of trust. We don't trust people that can't be vulnerable. When somebody makes a mistake and they don't admit to it, we go, ooh, I don't think I can trust them. Or if they're bad at something and they can't say, hey, I'm bad at that, we think, oh, I can't really be honest with them and be vulnerable and I can't trust them. When a human being can say, hey, I'm terrible at something and I know it, and you guys are all allowed to call that out with me, we're like, oh, that's a person I will walk through a wall of fire for because they're human. And yet people have been taught, don't let them see you sweat. And that's just not a good man. The best leaders are the ones that go, check this out, and we go, that's a person I want to follow. The best leaders in the world are not perfect. They know themselves. They know what they're good at too. They're not in denial of their skills and their aptitudes, but they're also not pretending to be good at stuff they're not good at.
You hit on a couple of things. I love to take notes. Discernment, I feel like I'm good with pattern recognition, galvanizing. I'm not afraid to get in front of a team and fire them up. Halftime talks, pregame, the disrespect card. But if somebody's not, and they realize they are not good at galvanizing, and you're the CEO, how do you delegate that?
It's a great question. And here's the deal. People say, what kind of types are best for to be the CEO? And we always say it's the self-aware. Whatever you are, think about it, great basketball coaches. They're not the same type, and what it is what you're not good at. So galvanizing is not one of my geniuses. Does that mean I can never do it? No, I have to do it sometimes. But if I put myself in a position to do it all the time, it's going to burn me out. So I found a guy in my organization, essentially an assistant coach, if you will. And I've worked with Eric Spoelstra uses our stuff. And he has assistant coaches that have to be better than him at certain things. And whether that's offensive strategy or galvanizing or designing the practice plan for that day, everybody has to let others fill in their gaps. So I took this guy in my organization. I said, you're the new chief galvanizing officer. That doesn't mean I'm done, but you like to do it. So every day I'm going to have you get up and rally the troops around the priorities that day. And he was like, well, I would love to do that, but I'm not old enough. And I said, no, it's a genius. It's a gift.
When I was the head coach, I'm intense, right? My biggest strengths, I'm intense, I'm driven. And my biggest weaknesses, I'm intense and I'm driven. And I didn't like to have practice lose its intensity. I didn't like to go off script. I didn't like too much talking. But I realized these kids needed to have fun. And so I thought fun was winning and competing in practice, but not everybody is like me or you. So I actually delegated fun in practice, and I had an assistant named Lance Irvin. So I delegated 8 minutes, the last 8 minutes of practice. I called it Irvin time. And I sat down because I didn't want to physically participate in folly in practice. But they had a blast. These kids are 19. They look like they're 30. They look like grown men. They're running around I said, you just have to do something with the basketball. They were doing shooting drills, dribbling drills. And, the losers had to, carry the other guys on their back, half court and back. They were having a blast. They went into the locker room in a good mood. But I had to delegate that.
And it's good for you because there's two things you can do. You can go, gee, I'm not very good at that. I know I'm going to spend all of my time trying to get to be more fun. Well, that's not your nature. Or you could say, screw it. Nobody's going to have fun. But you could say, hey, there's other guys on my team, on my assistant coaches. They would be great at this. I'm going to not only empower them to do it, but I'm going to celebrate the fact that they're doing it because they're filling in a gap that I don't have.
That's right. That's beautiful. Let's go to break. And when we come back, Patrick is going to discuss the most significant rebound of his career. OMJ Clothing is an elite men's clothing store that provides a vast array of spectacular brands of men's lifestyle apparel for every day. Elevate your business upscale casual at OMJ. Success comes from standing out. The Rebound is sponsored by Sector Spider ETFs, a unique family of exchange-traded funds that divide the S&P 500 into 11 sector index funds. You can buy just the sectors you like or customize the S&P 500 by weighting the 11 sectors to meet your financial objective. Please visit them on the web at sectorspiders.com. That's sector, SPDRS.com.
Alps Portfolio Solutions Distributor, a registered broker-dealer, is the distributor for the Select Sector Spider Trust.
Patrick, tell us about your rebound story. I've seen an interview where you openly talk about Jesus, the dark place you arrived at after achieving great success, and how your faith restored you.
Yeah, it's and I'm still rebounding. We're never done this side of heaven, God willing. What I come to realize is we all have wounds when we're kids. And for me, I felt like I had to be perfect and achieve a lot. A lot of great athletes have that too, Matt. You know this. And so the more you achieve, you think, well, maybe this will be I'll be done. That'll be all I need. And you realize, like St. Augustine said, we all have a hole in our heart that only can be filled by God. And so I had achieved more than I ever thought I would. And I was successful in my career, in my life. And I had a wonderful wife and wonderful kids. And I was like, what's wrong with me? And why am I empty? And I remember saying, God, what do I need to do? And he was like, yeah, I just need to humble you to realize that it's all about me. It's all about God. And so, because we in life can think it's all about what we're doing. And even though I always had faith, Matt, I didn't realize that I was acting out of my wounds, trying to prove that I could be enough. And of course, we're never enough. It's only through God that we are. So I'm still on that path. I mean, and that's the new path I'm on. And every day is an adventure in continuing to rededicate myself to God, not me.
Where did that come from? Where'd that wound come from?
Well, interestingly enough, when I was a very, very young kid, I was in a situation in my family where I just wasn't seen, and I was kind of overlooked and not really encouraged. And when you're a little kid and you realize, hey, I'm lost here, I better do something to get noticed. And I'll probably be able to earn love and attention and affirmation from my parents and other people. So I did everything my parents, my coaches, my teachers, everybody asked me to do, I tried to do perfectly. You can never do that on you need to go reestablish. So I'm still at age 59, I'm still working on reestablishing a true love of self through God, and know that I'm good enough and I'm okay, which sounds very soft, but I'm not a soft guy. But that's where I am. I'm trying to rebuild my understanding of how God sees me, not how the world does.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful stuff. It goes back to the vulnerability. You know, it's your invincibility, and people lean into that. When did you come to this realization?
I first started to come to the realization about 15 years ago, but then about 5 years ago, I read a book by a guy who played college football named Bob Schutz, and it's called Be Healed. And it's a faith book about wounds. And so then I started seeing, therapists and coaches and counselors about, why do I feel this way? And it's because, and he often goes back to really early childhood stuff that you never think about.
Yeah.
But you eventually have to get back there.
I love the fact, and I was going to actually ask you this question: what's the most influential book you've read? Because you've written 13, and I always like to ask, what do authors read? Like, you were inspired by books, otherwise you probably wouldn't have written them. But it's Be Healed by
Dr. Bob Schutz, and his name is like SCHOUCHTZ or something like that. Be Healed. And it was very influential because he lists like the 7 wounds that you've experienced when you're a kid. And I was going through it. I got that one, not that one. Oh, I got that one. And I was like, holy Toledo. No wonder I haven't gotten out of this yet, because I have never dealt with this.
Yeah. And those are the biggest drivers I found with a lot of people who are very successful, like yourself. Yeah. It drives you to success because you want to overcome some insecurity.
Yep.
But it's not a healthy success, right?
Because you never really arrive at a point where you go, wow, that's enough.
Tell us about the book that you plan on writing next, Wounds.
Yeah, what I'm realizing is there's so many leaders out there, and you can relate to this, Matt, in your journey and your work, what that you do now. There's so many leaders who are motivated by things that they don't quite understand, and it gets back to their wounds. So like, we have the working genius, and there's Myers-Briggs, and you have to understand yourself and self-awareness. But if you're not aware of the wounds you're running from in life or you're dealing with, then the story isn't complete. So I'm writing a story about a guy who helps leaders understand what is motivating them that might not be healthy, so that they can adjust that. Wow.
Yeah, because there's collateral damage. I talk about leadership, and I was a leader that, like you, I think you tell stories, right? Because they stick, like fables, like parables in the Bible. You can remember these stories, and if it's just facts, you don't remember it. So you're great at telling stories. Mine is, I drive a speedboat, a cigarette boat. I like to go about 70, and that's my leadership style. And if people aren't hanging on, they get tossed. They're in the wake. They're drowning. And I'm like, you should have held on tighter.
Right. And we all have to look at that and go, we've done that to people before. Whatever our wounds are, we've affected others. We've been affected by others. And it's only by going there that we're going to deal with that stuff. It's painful, but it's part of life. And God didn't say that life wouldn't have pain. He just said he'd be there with us in it.
You're impacted by three things: the people you meet, the books you read, and the trauma in your life.
Wow.
The first two you control. The third is coming, whether you like it or not. And yeah, mine is losing my job at North Carolina. That was the trauma in my life. Before we go, I like to ask, especially a man of faith, what is your morning routine? I like to ask people that are successful, what's your morning routine?
So I've started doing something every morning in the last few years, and I don't think I'll ever stop. I can't imagine ever stopping. And that is, there's an app on my phone called Amen, AMEN. And I wake up and I listen to the readings of the day. And we're Catholic, so there's mass readings today. So it's one reading probably from the New Testament, maybe the Old, the Psalm and the Gospel. And I start my day reflecting on that. The first thing I do when my eyes open up is I start talking to Jesus because I need him. And so that's what I do. And you know, whatever else happens, I want to start there and give myself the best chance to not get lost in the myriad of worries, fears, or to-dos that are on my plate. Because if we check our phone and look at the news, or we go to our email, or it's just we're lost. So I try to go there first.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I think most people, like yourself, have some form of morning routine. I started to journal over a year ago, and I've journaled every day since July 31st of 2023. I was not a journaler. I thought it was soft. I thought it was weak. I didn't know how to start. But what I realized is I needed to feed myself positive thoughts, because I think most people with who do you spend the most time with is yourself. What do you say to yourself? You could say some nasty things to yourself.
Oh.
And so I had to feed myself some positive stuff. Do you do any journaling?
No. And I'm a writer, right? I'm going
Right.
to tell you something, Matt. This is going to be crazy. People have been saying this my whole life. My wife's been telling me this. But when you just said that, I just said, okay, it's time. I'm going to start doing it. Have you found it to be helpful?
You know what? I tell you, I can't journal on a blank sheet of paper. So everyone has these nice like moleskins and I'll give you the one I use. It's called the 5-minute journal, and I'm not getting any endorsement from it, but It prompts you. It gives you, it's literally like 2 minutes in the morning, 3 minutes in the evening. And it prompts you with questions. What are you grateful for? What would make today a great day? And then in the evening, what were the highlights of your day? And what did you learn today? And it puts me in a great frame of mind. So I'm going to gift you one. I have an extra one. I'll send it to you as a gift from me.
I would appreciate that, because it's time to do this. Because if it makes a difference, I'll do anything that makes a difference. Maybe because I'm a writer, I've kind of thought, I do enough writing, but this is different. So I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to tell my wife tonight when I go home, hey, Matt Doherty told me I should journal, and I'm going to do it.
She's going to get mad at me because you're listening to me and not her. Patrick, thanks for joining us today and sharing your Rebound story. How can people get in touch with you and learn more about your assessment?
Well, this has been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. And you can go to workinggenius.com, 2 G's in the middle, workinggenius.com. And the assessment is there. It takes 12 minutes. There's all kinds of free resources around it too. But it's been a pleasure being on the show. I really have enjoyed it.
Leadership is a learned behavior. We all lead in some way, shape, or form. We all deal with adversity. And when you do, I challenge you to rebound. I challenge you to learn and grow. If you'd like to contact me, you can reach me at dohertycoaching.com. That's DOHERTY.com. Thanks for tuning in.